Hey folks, Sun here. Wanted to do a little video today. There was a Discord post. We were discussing some ways to use echoing equations that were pretty interesting. So I figured we'd um, give it a shot building a deck. So I'm gonna kind of walk through some of the ways I would approach building a deck like that. Um, some of the things you would want to think about when you're brewing. This particular kind of deck is probably going to be more on the for fun side than for competitive uses, but um, there's nothing wrong with that. Magic is a game, so there's more than just ladder and competing, and it's important to remember that, take a step back, and just have some fun sometimes. So the general idea here is we're going to take echoing equations, which is the backside of this fellow, and we're going to try to abuse. So the original idea was with the Seeker's Chariot. Basically, you get a Seeker's Chariot out, make some tokens, then you echoing equation on the chariot, and you get a bunch of Asika's chariots. The problem is that the tokens, when they turn into Asika's chariot, are not crewed. So they immediately fall from being a creature back to an inactive state. And if you don't have enough things to power them up, you can't then use them to do an attack or copy. So the problem was, how do you then kind of take that and keep the creatures around? And there are some ways that you could probably do that, but it's very clumsy and would involve a lot of different parts. So even for fun, it probably wouldn't work at a level that you would even want to play it for fun. So I was thinking about instead taking the echoing equation idea and trying to break out the venture mechanic. So we're going to use a blue, white, green base and try to equation off of Nadar and Silvery Moon and see if we can get some magic to happen with that. The idea with Nadar is if we can make one Nadar land, and we have tokens or other creatures, and we get them all copied through echoing, then we can run through a dungeon in one attack run, get them all buffed if we haven't already, and have 5 or 6 like 8/8s or 9/9s with a vigilance storming in. If we use Silvery Moon, we don't get the on attack portion of it, but if we can make a whole bunch of Silvery Moons and then cast one creature, we can have them all trigger to run through a dungeon, make a bunch of 2/2 wolves, have them swing in, that turn, and then the next turn we have doubled the size of our board, right? So that's kind of the idea. See if we can abuse the venture mechanic with the echoing equation here. So we'll start off with 4 of these, and we'll grab our friend Nadar next. So if you are unfamiliar with the card, it is a white legendary for 3, so 2 and a white. It has vigilance. When it enters play or attacks, he ventures into the dungeon, and if you've completed the dungeon, all of your creatures get a +1/+1. So if we can use echoing equations and multiply him, and we venture into the dungeon to have everything complete at the same time, they will all self-buff each other, right? So our whole board will get that stacking buff. So all of our creatures suddenly will transform. If we had 6 into like 8/8s, um, all coming in vigilance in a single attack run. And we can start off with just one Nadar and a bunch of tokens or whatever, right? So that's kind of the idea here. So we'll grab these guys. We'll grab Silvery Moon. So normally, if you were going to do an actual venture deck, you'd fill in a bunch of other things to support that side of the mechanic. But in this case, we're not really going for an actual venture deck. We're going more for this kind of combo off idea. So what we're going to do instead is kind of fill up with a bunch of low-cost creatures, so we can always have stuff on the board for our echoing equation to go wide with, and make sure that we can generate mana appropriately. So the important thing is to make sure that we have the base around these kind of two important combo pieces. Otherwise, if we are trying to do this venture thing, that all of those cards are kind of expensive, so we probably won't be able to do those, and also this strange combo idea that we're going to try to pull off. So with our 12 core cards here, so it hasn't added blue because it doesn't assume automatically that we're going to be using blue, so we'll have to make sure we account for that and put that into the deck if we don't actually splash any blue other than that one particular card. The next thing I want to grab though is the Prosperous Innkeeper. So this in general will help ramp, good for just general life gain. So this is really good early game option. Grab those guys. So now we could go for a lot of different things. We don't want to just die, right? In the early game, we want to make sure we have mana available, so that Prosperous Innkeeper is going to help with that. But we're going to need some blockers. We're going to need some early board presence, so we don't just get run over. But then hopefully our combo is going to kind of take over. So to help support that best, we could go a lot of ways. We could go more of a control-y way and stack up with like portable holes and stuff like that. Add in blue and go counter. Like if we take a look at, we'll just filter out the colors that we want in general. If we take a look at blue in particular, obviously counter-centric. There are a lot of interesting choices in blue in general right now, outside of what a lot of people may consider for general run. For example, Ray of Frost. If you're running into a lot of aggro matchups, especially with red creatures, Ray of Frost is a really good option. In general, it will do a tap down effect on the enemy's creature, but if it's red, they're going to lose all of their abilities on top of that, and it will force tap on enter with flash. So if they have Goldspan, Immerstrom, Philomagus, all of those big bad Inferno guys that you do not want doing anything to you, Ray of Frost shuts that down. So that's kind of an off choice that many people aren't really looking at. In best of one, that might be a little more strange to main board, but certainly in best of three, if you're running blue and this isn't something that you've kind of looked at, with the current meta, this is definitely something I would consider putting in a blue deck for a sideboard piece. So just as a note there. So Mystic Reflection could be interesting for this. We could use that to play off making, so like when we do, if we add in the Seeker's Chariot, for example, so we take kind of the original idea and play that into what we're doing. We could use Mystic Reflection as an additional combo point, right? Or we could use that on the flip side as a counter to something an opponent's doing. If we're just making, cat tokens and stuff like that, we don't necessarily want an opponent to have a creature, but if it's that or Goldspan or Emery or whatever, I'd rather them have a cat token than one of those guys. So that could be an interesting choice for this deck. One of the things we want to be cognizant of, though, is obviously the mana base in general, right? So the wider blue that we go, the more split we have in our color choice, the harder in general it will be to manage all of those things kind of converging when we really need them to. So we could go blue a lot and kind of stick back on the white, just really use it for the Nadara piece, or we could go more heavy into white and kind of stick back on the blue and really just rely on that for echoing equation. It kind of depends on how we want to play the deck more. So if we wanted, I would say if you want more aggro or presence, white is probably going to be the better choice. If we want to handle this more control-y, right, have more tricks, blue would be stronger for that, right? So we could use things like Divide by Zero and maybe Dragon Turtles to kind of muck up their board, give us time, let us bounce things, give us a learn board. So I think for at least the first version, we will try, let's see, we'll try to go, I think, with mostly blue-green splashing white versus white-green splashing blue, because I like some of the trick ideas, and we'll see if they work at all. If it's just kind of too much to do, if there's too many different things we're trying to do, which is certainly likely, that we can kind of back off that and reevaluate, right? So when you're building, that's one of the main things. You don't sit down, look at a bunch of cards, and then half an hour later, the best guys in the world have a killer deck. Like it's a process. You find cards that obviously look good, seem to work well, and then you start refining from there. So it's this whole process that a lot of times isn't really shown. So hopefully this video and many more will start to show whether it's fun or more of a serious deck. There's a lot that goes into the building process, and it's not really scary or hard per se. There's certain enjoyments you get out of building like this. It's just different, and if that's not really explained and you just try to throw some cards together that don't work, that can be really frustrating if you don't understand what to do next, like how you initially select some things, your plan for when that won't really work very well, how you start tuning, evaluating, prune out certain things, look at it realistically and say, okay, that really isn't working, so what's a better option here. There's that whole process to building, which is very fun for many of us, but it isn't, I don't think, very much talked about. So all that being said, let's press on here. So like I said, we're gonna go kind of more blue-green, right? So more of a Simic focus splashing white. So we're going to put in a couple glass pools, which may play off of some Masika chariots. We're going to put in those as well. We will put in a couple divide by zeros, maybe 3 of those. And we're not going to go very heavy on the blue. I don't want too many different things for this kind of deck. This kind of deck isn't really trying to be control, and it's not really trying to be aggro. So it's kind of a mid-range, definitely combo, but its combo is going to be strange. So we'll see how it works. So we'll start with those and see if there's any cheap blue things that we feel like we just really have to have here. Maybe. So one of the things you might think of when you have like echoing equation is to combo with avalanche collar, which does not it just does not work the way you want it to. The problem is when avalanche collar takes a land and makes it into a creature, it's doing that as an enhanced action on the base card, and the copy that is made doesn't take any extra effects, so you just get a copy of the base item, whatever that is. So if it's Nasika's Chariot, that is not crewed when you get the copy, so it becomes an uncrewed version of Nasika's Chariot. If it's a land that has become a creature, you get an uncreatured land. You just get a land copy, so you'll get the copy of that initial land creature as just a land without being a creature. So your whole board will go from actual creatures down to land, and now you have nothing. So it might seem like that would be bonkers, but it really doesn't work the way you would want it to. So these are all the things that you have to think about when you're going off the beaten path and trying to do more of a combo piece. There's a lot of things you can do, but you have to think about the layers, right? And it's something that's also not very much talked about. There's layers. Things happen in layers, and when you're doing like a copy effect, until the new stuff in historic releases with these digital only effects like perpetual, right? Until then, there are no effects in the game where when you make a copy of something, you're copying the whole state. You're not copying its current state, you're copying the base thing. So if the base thing is just a 1/1 creature that has no other abilities, and then you put 10 1/1 counters on it, you're not getting an 11/11 creature on copy, you're getting a 1/1 with no abilities. So you have to keep that in mind when you're using stuff like echoing equations or other copy effects. They will literally copy just the base thing. So be careful when you're building around a copy mechanic, because you can, if you're trying to be kind of serious with your build, even for a casual or fun game, but you're being serious about it, it can be very frustrating if you go through a lot of work and build, and then you don't really understand what will happen when you copy, right? So if you're looking for copy to do, you make that land into a creature with the avalanche collar, right, with this guy, and then you expect on all your copies to still be land creatures, they won't. They'll turn into lands, and your whole board will die. You'll feel awful. So whenever you copy, look at the base card, that's what you're going to get, or token, if it's a token. That's what you'll get. You're not going to get any other modifiers, any other like equipment effects or whatever. All of that other stuff is not copied. You don't get the whole state of what it looks like right now. You get the base thing, the base card, token, whatever. So that's a very important thing when you're dealing with copy mechanics to keep in mind. All right, so moving on, we have a couple glass pools, a couple divides. For the moment, I can't think of anything, so we'll switch over to green, and we're gonna pick up a Sika. All right, so we'll grab these. So these are good for a bunch of reasons. Tokens, so that'll give us more go wide for our pugilist here, or echoing equations. If we want to, we can use echoing equations on the chariot. So like I said, it will uncrew itself. However, if we have enough go wide, we can use some of the chariots to like power themselves. And the reason we would want to do that is because echoing equations, when it makes a copy, it removes the legendary type from that creature. So when the chariot is in a crude state, it's a creature. It lets us do the echoing equation, and then that spell, the echoing equation, will take the legendary portion out of it. So we can then make token copies of one or more chariots from the chariot, which are now no longer legendary, right? So they will stay in play as long as they don't die. So that's a cool way to use the echoing equation. That was kind of the original idea, but it's pretty difficult to use because all your stuff kind of uncrews when it transfers. So that's the original idea, and I think overall it's still kind of useful to our overall theme. Like the token portion of it can certainly help make sure that we have some stuff to go wide with. So I think on top of that, we can look at adding in, let's see. So what's cool is you can take, for this type of idea, this type of combo, you can include any creature you want, right? The idea is eventually you're going to combo it into something else that is what you're going to kill with. So like Overgrown Arch, for example, it's a defender, so it can't attack, but in the early game we can gain life with it. It's a decent blocker. We could learn if we needed to, if we had to sacrifice it, and then if we echoing equation something else, that will no longer be a defender. That will be whatever echoing equation is doing, right? So when you're doing combos like this, you don't necessarily have to stack your deck with just beaters. Like we could put an Intrepid Outlander, which technically fits the venture theme, but it may not help us as much as maybe an Overgrown Arch on the early game if we're trying to survive to get to this combo point, right? In this in this particular deck, we are probably going to need a lot of mana though, so I think first we'll start adding in some Dryads, which normally are not amazing, but that's okay. And then let's see, we're at 53. So this defaults to 24 land, which is fine. So for this size deck, that's pretty much right where we want to be. Alright, so let's see, let's take a look. Go in here, we'll take a look at, right now we're at a 2.7 cast cost average, right? So our combined mana cost, what I remember it as, or the new mana value. So we're under 3, that's pretty good, right? So that means for on average we need just shy of 3 or at 3 mana to cast whatever we're drawing into, which is good. This is going to be kind of intensive once we have the echoing equation. So we want to make sure that overall we can just flow. One of the things I think we'll need though is some form of card draw on top of just having ramp. Let's see, we have a lot of creatures. We have 22. That's pretty good. We have the we have the chariot. So let's see. I think green, blue. I think maybe adding in actually Pondrix Command, maybe a good one for us. Gives us a counter possibility, a bounce, ability to get some stuff back from our graveyard into our deck. +1/+1 counters never hurt either, so we'll try 3 of those. Doesn't address our draw though, right? We probably want an additional way to draw, so let's go back to blue. Alright, so we have a couple options for drawing. We could go with a wizard class, which is a little unconventional. This is more similar to like Omen of the Sea from normal standard than it is like multiverse, right? Behold the multiverse. The upside of this one is that eventually you could hopefully use it to start pumping creatures, right, with your +1/+1 counters. Or we could go with Behold the Multiverse and just have a straight up scry draw. I think for this we'll keep the low cost. We'll do 3 of those. And we have 1 spot left. Let's see. Maybe just add in another glass pool. Yep. Alright, so now let's grab some lessons for our side learn board here. Alright, so I always love getting Containment Breach. There are so many class enchantments right now. It's almost always useful. Plus, like the Angel deck with those enchantments. All right, so Mascot Exhibition. That's kind of a given for any learn board these days. We'll get 1 Sciences. Prophecy, just in case. Actually, maybe an Archaics. One of those. Got 3 left. So reduce to memory because that lets us exile any non-land permanent, they do get a creature, but that's often better than letting uh, Onyx, Kaya, Inferno, whatever, stay on board. So those are very helpful, especially because it bypasses indestructible. So the exile effect is great, and when you're not playing colors that give you access to natural exile effects, that can be really powerful to bring in and help fix a board state for yourself or get out of a problem. Okay, and I think for the last one we'll get a basic conjuration. One of the main reasons is what that will let us do is we can search for Pugilist and then flip the Pugilist and cast the equation side, right? So we can cast the Pugilist, and that might even be the win condition sometimes, and cast it naturally. We can use this to search for a Pugilist and then use the blue second phase. So it's kind of like in the Emergent Ultimatum decks where they're using Ultimatum to get a Loki and then flipping it for the Tybalt side, right? In this case, it's more of like a search effect, but because the top face is the Pugilistic creature, we can use this to search for it, gain some life, and then flip it when we do the cast for our equation. So we'll grab that. And maybe another sciences. So with a tricolor deck, we might run into mana fix problems. So we'll start with a couple of those. We can adjust as we go, right? Okay, so now we will move on to our mana. Alright, so excuse me. Alright, so blue green, those are our primary colors, right? We really only have the 4 Nadar, that's the only white stuff in the deck. But those are going to be pretty sweet if we can make them go off. Right, so let's start adding in some pathways. Let's get those and get those and get those. Alright, so now we are left with 8, 3, and 1. Weighted on the green, which makes sense. Alright, so mana is very important. Obviously, without it, you can't play. But especially in this this type of deck, a tricolor, even if there's only one of that off color, a tricolor deck where we're trying to combo and we don't have the same, so triomes, right? 22 does not have triomes. It makes building a 3-color deck much more difficult. Also, the lack of Fabled Passage makes it much more difficult. So you can still build a 3-color deck, but you need to be more conscious of the mana you're using. The more tap lands you're including, the greater chance you have of being tapped on your first X turns for whatever percentage of land. So that could be fine. You just need to account for those things, right? If you're not accounting for it, you're just going to get frustrated when you get the wrong land because you don't have a good mix, or if you have too much tap land and your deck really doesn't accept waiting for that mana to be untapped. You're going to be in for a world of hurt. So you need to plan around even the mana that you're using. So in this kind of deck, we really don't want to be tapping a lot. We have a lot of kind of strange things, and when we want to combo, we're going to want to combo all the time. We don't want to be waiting around for it. So we're not going to have much or maybe any, we'll see here, tap land, so that we minimize the chances of on turn 4, 5, 6 running into a spot where we can't double cast and echoing equation and boom, combo out, right? We want to be able to get into those turns, combo, and end the game. If we're not able to do that, we're probably not going to be doing very good. So we need to make sure we have the mana up and available at that point. If we're worried about all this tap land, that's not going to work out for us. So one of the lands I want to include here is kind of an off-choice Tyrant Sanctum. I like throwing this in a lot of decks where I have more than one copy or set, play set, right? So a 4 count of a legendary. This is very good for a couple reasons. You can use it just as a buff, right? So you can use just the 2 and tap portion of this to buff a legendary creature. It'll gain a god creature type if it doesn't have it already. So an interesting combo is using Tyrite and Faceless. It's a changeling, right? So it has all creature types. It immediately is a god as soon as it's a creature. So if you wanted to make an indestructible Faceless Haven, you could do that if you have the mana available as soon as this becomes a creature. You don't have to do the normal progression that this wants you to do, which is 2 and tap the Tyrite, make it a god, give it a counter, untap, 4, tap the Tyrite, sacrifice it, put an indestructible. You can skip all that and go right to making this indestructible, provided you have enough mana open. So that's something to keep in mind. But that's why I like including it, right? You can take this, make your legendaries surprise bigger. There's no, as a sorcery, stipulation on the abilities. So at instant speed, as it were, you can buff a legendary by giving it a +1/+1 counter. Or if it's already a god, you can make it indestructible. Surprise, it's not dying. So 1, maybe 2, depending on the deck, where you're running. So in our case, we're going to have 4 Seekas. We'll have Silvering Moons, Nadars. So theoretically, we'll have targets for that, and being able to just give them a random +1 counter out of the blue with an opponent that isn't very much paying attention to our land can make the difference between a good block series and a bad block series where our board state is now wiped out and we lose. So pay attention to the lands. There's a lot of lands in here, and it's good to check them out. All right, little daughter interruption there. So like I was saying, there's a lot of lands that have been made, and they do a lot of different things. So pay attention to those, right? Biblioplex is a good one. Even Treasure Vault. There are a lot of different things now in the game that lets us combo in new ways and strange ways that people are still kind of going through. So just kind of keep your eyes open, right? There's a lot of things that that can be used in the game. Right, so let's get some land here and finish this off, and we'll take it for a spin. Let's see, do we want any land creatures? I think maybe we'll keep the one plains. Grab a storm giant hall. Do you want me tap lands? Probably not. Maybe maybe a Quandrix campus actually, just so we have a scry outlet if we need it. And game's dragging on maybe. Okay, and then we will grab our land. Alright, so let's give it a cool sleeve. Let's go with that one. Let's give it a name. Duplicating equations. Alright, so here is our deck. We're pretty heavy on the 3 slot, but the glass pool mimic probably a lot of time is going to be land. This we're really going to be wanting to cast that as a 5, and then we have counter, right? So if we just kind of split this up, so more realistically this is actually more like that. This is essentially a land. Right, so this is more what this actually looks like. Right, we have our counters here. So that's pretty good layout. Let's take a look. Our average is 2.6. That's still really good. So we should be good on cast cost, right? And then we have chariots. Yep. Okay. All right, let's take it for a spin. So when you're building, you can certainly do bot matches initially. I like to take my decks, your decks, ideas, right, and just put them right in. You know, sometimes I get to mythic, sometimes I don't. Right now, obviously, I'm not mythic. That's fine. The more important thing for me at the moment is just kind of exploring what 22 has to offer, how we can use all of these combo pieces and all these different ideas, right? That's really what I'm after. So for me, I'm just going to take it right into ladder here, and we'll see how we're doing. It looks like we're coming up to either mono black, or it could be an Ors deck. We just haven't seen their white yet. So let's see. High Twitch and play. We could cast her Nadar, but it's likely that it'll die. So we will just pass the turn and see what they do. Right, we could potentially counter. Can't counter that. We don't want to bounce it either, right? So that's fine. Let's see. Give them the land. another glass pool. Alright, we're gonna use one as a land. Draw 2. Okay. Lots of land. Alright, now we can activate that faceless lantern. Well, it would have been nice to have that up. Whoops. Not blocking. Alright, so next turn, 3, 4, 5, we have 6. So we could Nadar and have Quandrix as a backup. So I think we'll do that, right? It's fine, we'll take the life. We'll go with the middle path. It's a pretty good one. So we'll scry first, pitch the land. Then next we can make a creature, a little token, right, which we can sacrifice to the turret grid there. Soul Shatter. So do this, do that, bounce. Okay, sure. It's not very helpful. Just level that up. Go with a blue. Discard. We're just going for it. Okay. We are probably not recovering from this. That's... Well, we kind of got our combo pieces. Moving on. So that didn't work, obviously. The discard deck is super annoying. It's alright. Let's try again. So one of the things when you're building you want to pay attention to is aside from just did I win or lose, what happened in the game, right? So in that game, we didn't get very many creatures. We got land. This hand is ridiculous. That's not very helpful. So it seemed like we got a lot of land, not very many creatures, and things to kind of help our game, right? So we might need to cut a land or two, depending on how the next game or two goes. Wow, these are awful hands. Yeah. We'll pitch the command because we really want to be comboing, right? And even though this will not give us white. We'll go with green first. Get the haul out into innkeeper for token or treasure, Nadar, and start to try to roll from there. Okay, that's not unhelpful. But we're not going to blow that on that guy, right? We're gonna hopefully draw into a land. So in this case, it's the opposite problem. We're not getting land so far. So hopefully we draw into one. Cool. And then just cast our Nadar. So I blocked there because I don't want that to start being a runaway situation. And we'll send this guy out now so we can get our scry effect. Okay. So we can expect a land. We're gonna have double green. Grab another environmental. Yeah. So we can double. Those will become threes. So if they swing in, we'll just block and kill one. Okay. So now we're gonna do that. Get that one out. And then we're probably going to take a bunch of damage here. That's probably just what's going to happen. Yeah. Sure. Nope. Alright, so Nadar. So I'd like to make a 1/1, but we really need the land. We get that out as a land, so we'll have 5 next turn. We can technically combo unless we die. That's unfortunate. I'll get rid of at least one of those. We'll grab Sika. I mean, we're pretty much just dead here, really. See if they do something ridiculous. If they don't attack with everything, okay. Annoying, but what are you gonna do, right? do anything here, so yeah, we'll put that one in. So I think from those two games, let's go back to the deck here. We're meeting a lot of early creatures, and we don't have good answers for them. So, if we... I think the Quandrix command really isn't helping much. Could probably go down one on the Varus. So it gives us 4 cards to play with. Mimic also so far has just been land. So that leaves Divide by 0, Wizard class, and then 6 or 7 of those. 2. This is 2, 23 lands. 8 cards to play with. Alright, so we need more presence. So like I said originally, that means either or and green or white. I think for our purposes there are some better white choices to start with. Like we could pull in Professor of Symbology. That would be solid. But I think Luminarch might be a good choice because it's cheap, right? It'll fit into our 2 slot. It'll buff itself or other creatures we have. So when we eventually get an echoing equation to go off, anything with counters will get additional buff right on top of whatever we're doing. So I think we'll go 3 of those, and let's see. Like we could pull in stuff like Portable Hole, but I don't really want to dilute the idea that we're going for here and kind of the mode. Like we're not really a rush deck per se, and I think that would kind of dilute our game plan too much if we start pulling in that stuff. But a good option may be the Ranger class. And let's see. Ranger class and maybe a Tangled Florhedron. So it gives us the ability to play it as a land or as a creature for tap that we can then, yeah, I like that. Okay. So we're a little heavier on white now. We do have a bunch of stuff that comes in, but at this point I think we need to look at adding in just a couple tap lands. So let's take a look at our white green. Maybe 1 Arctic Tree Line. floodplain. And we do have the campus already, so that's good. Right, so we need to move it down, one there, and we'll just get rid of the tie right for now. It's a cool idea, but I think right now we just need more focus for our mana, and we're dropping one in general, right? We're going down to 23. So let's see how we do now. Alright, so we substantially increased our creature count. Let's see what kind of change that makes here for us. Alright, so we have a nice land mix here. We got white green, we have a 2-drop, and a Nadar 4-drop. So we don't have the combo piece or draw specifically, however Nadar helps us there. And Chariot is great, Luminarch is great, so this is a pretty good start. And a Silvery Moon, excellent. Alright, so we'll get our Luminarch out, have it buff itself. And I think we're going to go into Varus first. That way, the following turn, we can essentially double trigger our Nadar. So we'll get the trigger from Varus, and then the trigger from Nadar. And excellent, we got 4 land. Okay, now we have a blue open also. That's even better. Alright, so let's get our scry in. Let's try hunting for our combo now. We're gonna need another blue though. So let's make a treasure token. Put that on that guy, Tekken, and Varus. We're up against some kind of Esper, it looks like. We get rid of the Nadar because we have another one anyway. Alright, there's our second natural blue. It's perfect. Cast Nadar again. Do that so that guy's effectively useless. Draw a card. Alright, so now we've completed a dungeon and we haven't comboed yet, even. So that's perfect. Alright, so hopefully they don't have Shadow's Verdict. that would suck. Maybe Doomscar, also not very good for us. Oh, well. Alright. And if that's a counter, our combo is dead, but we came here to combo. Let's try to combo. That guy. Mascot, huh? So they probably have an epiphany in hand. Swing with those. Alright, so we didn't actually get the combo off, but we tried. That worked much better, obviously, than originally. So this is the build process, right? You start with an idea, you build cards around the idea, start playing and testing it, and then, like I said, pay attention when you're playing. What is happening in the game, not just overall are you winning or losing, but how are you getting cards? What cards are you getting? Are you getting more land than you need? Are you getting more creatures than you need? Do you need better answers? What kind of decks are you coming up against the most? All of those things are very important to pay attention to so that you can tune as you're playing and hone in the deck and the idea, and your end result might look very different from where you started, but you're going to have something that is going to start working more and more, and be tighter, faster, come to its combo, or go wide, or whatever it's doing much more easily, right? So that's the whole point, right? When you're building, it's not a simple, you just throw some cards together and then boom, you're done. You have like this epic deck, or you have a terrible deck. It's neither one of those. You have a deck that you're now going to need to test out, refine, spend some time with, and see how it actually works for real. Right, so here we could sack our treasure, do the Varus trick, then into Nadar. I think that's still a decent play. So we'll do it that way. So next turn we will probably Nadar, unless something crazy happens. We could Ranger class instead. So we could next turn Ranger and Luminarch instead if we need more presence on board. Okay, Loth. Yeah.
We will slay our enemies.
Okay, blue, so we have our combo almost ready, right? So we're going to use this to make a treasure. Right, we're going to get our double trigger. So first scry. Okay, so we'll have two up. Right, two triggers up. Okay, and we're not going to use that treasure or attack him. We're just going to sit. So we could go right for it next turn, or we could Ranger and Luminarch first, try to buy a turn, provided no removal. That could be a good option, because then we're just wider, right? So if our combo goes off, then we have a much bigger base, and our creature buff will be a lot bigger. Okay, well now we have to recast the Nadar anyway. So we will do that.
Go, my children.
Don't have an extra land, so that's pretty much all we're doing right now, unless we draw whatever we draw into. -4. Draw a card. Wizard class. Not super duper helpful at the moment, but not horrible either, right? Gonna sit. So next turn we can do our combo. Theoretically, we'll see what happens here. They might blood, which would not be very fun for us, but not back-breaking either.
Oh yes, I know the knowledge you seek.
So they still have blood potentially because of this guy here. Might just see some hard removal. Yeah, blood chief. So one of the things to notice, this game, we're not gaining much land. That's annoying as well. So if they attack in with the spiders, okay, didn't, so. Also annoying. Alright, so let's see. 1, 2, 3. Alright, so we can technically Varus and then Luminarch. So we will do that. Hopefully, I'll do Scry again. I'd really rather that be a forest. But it does get us to 5, right? So we'll leave that. We're gonna put the counter on the wolf. No attack. So then if they decide to power up the haven over there, we have a threat, right? We might not necessarily actually block, but we want to present the threat that we can kill the haven, we can kill their manland there, and while our board would be wiped if we did those things, it makes it less enticing for them to attack in, right? If we have multiple 3/3s or something that can deal with the faceless straight up. Okay, chariot. So we can combo here, but the Varus doesn't really give us a good outlet really for that. So instead I think I'll try to do a draw. Unfortunately we're getting outboarded pretty heavily at the moment. Okay, so it's not awful. It is another creature. Let's just make a treasure because we're used to the scry. Right, because we want the ability to possibly toss one of these guys down. We'll pass turn from here. We will put a counter on the, let's see, on what? On the try it. Okay.
Explode, bargain.
Mascot, probably. Yep. Okay. We might power up that Haven now. Just going for the mascot straight up. Okay. That works. Sure. Make a token, they'll copy that guy. That's a good plan. So unfortunately we don't have anything good left to equation onto. We can double ranger. That's about all we can do at the moment. We could have, powered that up, but we need board presence. We're probably not going to win this anyway,
Good
but
minions are loyal. And
so the changes we made, I think overall have helped so far. The deck still needs tweaking, but this is the start of that process. I think we're on the right track, and depending on the matchup, this is a pretty good setup. So it's 8, 10, 14. We'll just let it through. We don't have a reason to sacrifice our creatures. Probably not coming out of this anyway. Okay. Professor Onyx, sure.
open your books to page 17 or something.
Hey Lily, how you doing? Cool. Impeccable study habits. Wonderful. So, I mean, at this point, there's really nothing we can do. Let's just do our thing on Luminarch. Why not? We'll give something a whole bunch of tokens. Counters. It's one way to do it. Good game, opponent. So we finally got our combo off. It wasn't really helpful, but um, we did it. We got our combo off.
I will come.
We'll let them have the attack. Doesn't do anything to concede. Not being a jerk, so. So I think for this video, it's running pretty long. We'll leave it here. We will pick this deck back up in another video, and many more ideas. You know, I like to build. I like taking your ideas, my ideas, and seeing what we can do with that. Whether we have a very successful run right off, or it's more tuning, or maybe it's just not really going to work out. Right? Sometimes you have an idea that looks great, seems like it should work, but it just can't come together. The cards just don't fit right. You can't have enough of this or that, and it just doesn't work out. But you don't know until you try it, right? So I think this deck has potential. It's certainly not competitive, but I think it would be a fun deck to mess around with. So we'll keep messing around with this and more ideas. So hopefully anybody out there listening or watching, find me on Discord. We'll have links. Find us on the website. Send your ideas. Love to see new ideas. Particular card that looks cool. Combo that you think might be cool. Even an existing deck that you want to see twisted in some way, or what if this, what if that, whatever it is. Love to hear the ideas, and then we'll take it and we'll run with it. We'll see what happens. So thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please follow, thumbs up, subscribe, all the normal jazz, and otherwise have an excellent day wherever you are. Thanks very much.